Going live. Your meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Lucky people out there. So let me see. Let me pop out my chat. Glad it's been working lately. All right.
For next
we should get what?
The website. I'll do this. That's what I should do at the beginning of the show. Set up the website for the following week.
There you go.
Yeah,
Genius.
Thanks for
live.
joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Go for it, Eric. You usually do the intro.
Well, we don't have anybody here. Oh, we got 8 people watching now, so I'll give it a chance to people trickle in. 12 watching. We've been coming in. I was just talking to Che about this before the we went live, but I've been bad about getting making it the trifecta. It's been a lot of 2, but those are fun too. But we still have a lot of good guests. We're definitely going to get on here. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Prepper Trifecta. April 18th. Can you believe it's already April? It's almost the 5th month of this year. So that's kind of why I titled this about looking back on the pandemic after it's been over a year. But March was pretty much the year point for when everybody kind of recognized that this was a big deal. The shutdowns happened, all that sort of stuff. So it's a good time to look back and see what we think we should have done differently, what we did properly, what we'll do different next time, that sort of thing. And then we'll get into viewer questions, and if someone is in the audience and wants to hop on later for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on where we end up, then email me at rulethewasteland@gmail.com. We've got some familiar faces. What's up, SPQR? What's up, Orwell, Smolensky, Marshall, David, Donna, First Last, good stuff. So, personally, if we're talking about what we think we should have done differently, I think, I was just thinking about this, and now I totally spaced, but I still felt like I was kind of last minute on some of the stuff, specifically pandemic related. Like general preps, I was fine. I'm not as squared away as a lot of you guys out there in terms of just the sheer amount of time I could go without being resupplied at all. But, I aim for the 6-month mark. So if everything had shut down, I'd be fine with food and water and whatnot for at least 6 months. But in terms of the actual specific supplies that you would need for a pandemic situation, I kind of had checked the block, just like, oh, N95s, check, this, check, but not really, 10 masks or whatever, sitting there, 20 masks, check the block. But it wasn't really, especially for a situation like this, obviously that wasn't adequate, And I was able to pick up some of that stuff and bolster those areas, but the masks, it was like a little bit too late to that boat since it started in China where they were manufacturing most of that. But yeah, how about you? What do you think?
One thing that stands out for me is state of mind I was in. There was a lot of there's definitely moments of psychological hysteria. And
personally, you mean, or just in general around you?
Well, for me, there was a moment there. It's like, this is real. And
right.
Nobody didn't really. I mean, they shut down hockey. The world.
Right.
And we didn't know this is new. It's this virus. It's like it's not that we're prophecies. I don't know what the right word is. We prep for a reason. This is, for a lot of people, this is one of those reasons that it was actually happening.
Right. It's a weird feeling.
I certainly overreacted psychologically. I think I was extremely paranoid and overprecautious at times.
Yeah.
And as more time went on, I relaxed a bit, I think. And
well, naturally, yeah. You can follow that from our live streams where we're rating it, and you can see us, go down from the rating of the pandemic. But for me, it was, I know exactly what you're talking about because there was a time specifically going through the stores and seeing the shelves like completely barren and being like, wow, this is like legit. Like I've been through hurricanes, been through all sorts of stuff, and I've never seen anything quite that bad. And even though there hadn't even at that point been any drastic effect from the virus, I was still at the point where we thought the virus itself might be a big deal, and the people's reaction to it could of course be extreme. It turns out that for the vast majority of people out there is mostly the reaction of the government and everyone around them that is the big deal, not the virus itself. But it could have been both, you know what I mean? And it's scary to think that this level of reaction and everything happened with a virus that is in relative term or in absolute terms, I guess, not that deadly. You know, we've mentioned that before. Like, what the hell would this have looked like if that thing really was killing 10 or 20% of the people that got it? Like, it'd be wild.
One thing that, and you're correct, because we having a different conversation right now if that were the case.
We might not even be having one. I don't know if the grid would be up with the way people shut down with this thing. You know what I mean? Like, they might not have gone to work. Cops, police, you know what I mean? Nuclear power plant workers, everybody might have stayed home if they were, you know, with how afraid they are of this thing, even as it is.
The one thing I felt too was a sense of urgency, and I remember going to these dollar stores and just grabbing all the isopropyl or any
exactly.
Just stocking up. Last minute sense of urgency to stock up that last little bit.
Right.
And it certainly was a lot for some people. There's probably still a lot of people aren't going to be the same after this. There's a shift psychologically that's changed people's brains, and they're constantly going to be paranoid for the rest of their lives. I don't know what percentages it's going to be, but
we're
going to see an increase in a mental health crisis the next few years.
Yeah, no, we're seeing that now, and I think it'll happen kind of like threefold. There'll be, like you say, the people who just can't handle it and have an increased incidence of various types of mental health disorders. There'll be the people who compensate for by prepping, which is a good thing for the most part. You say, you know what, I'm squared away, I can relax a little bit. And then there's the people who are going all out and probably will wear masks and stuff for the rest of their lives. You know, they might always go around with the masks on, even if they're vaccinated or whatever. You know, they'll just become basically germaphobes from now on. Like kids who have, you know, basically spent some of their formative years wearing the mask and stuff, they might never be able to let that fear go that's been instilled in them by their parents and everyone around them, you know.
Horrible feeling. Forget COVID for a second. Just forget the whole washing your hands concept pre-2020. There's a segment of the population, whatever percentage it is, that are overly, they're germaphobes as it is. With the pandemic in, these people must be like,
oh yeah, if you were already a legit germaphobe, then to come in with that and then like have everyone tell you that it's serious, like it could have had, like I said, well, that now you're pushing it into the mental health territory. So Brian Hickingbottom, once again, thank you very much for your support. You have a question. For home defense, what is the best handgun? I need to consider getting one. I happen to live in a crime-ridden area. Thanks. So whenever I answer this question, there is no single answer to know without knowing what your exact situation is, what your like concerns are about it. If I don't know anything about someone's situation, I recommend a Glock 9mm simply because the gun itself is, like, I call it the Toyota Corolla firearms. They're extremely reliable. They're not that expensive. You know, they're just, there's nothing bad about them. There are things that you might not like about them, though, or things you might not be comfortable with. So it's, like I said, I'd like to know more about someone's situation individually, because some people are very uncomfortable with their lack of an external safety, for one. You know, so that just bothers some people. Some, you know, the way it holds, whatever. All that stuff is preference, though. So with those guns, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Glock 9mm or Glock 45. Obviously, a 12-gauge shotgun is great for home defense, too. If you have no need, as of right now, to worry about carrying it outside your home, I would probably go with the shotgun over a handgun to begin with, you know, and personally. And but yeah, for a handgun, there's nothing wrong with the Glock 9mm. I'm a big fan of Ruger's, and it's certainly like a 6-inch Smith & Wesson revolver. It's going to be fantastic as well. I would go with a larger revolver or larger handgun, period, if you're just doing home defense and not concealed carry, because it's just easier to be more accurate, things like that, easier to control, holds more rounds, things like that. So I wouldn't get a subcompact if you're not going to carry it concealed at all. So Glock 17, something like that, no issue there. Or 6-inch Smith & Wesson.
Cool, man.
If you want the external safety, you could go with like a Ruger P89 or something, or they have a decocker on some of them, not a safety, but that's what I would check out.
Brian, thanks for the Brian's our number one.
Definitely, I appreciate the support.
We may have to have an episode with Brian on the show.
Yeah, bring him on. Absolutely, if you want to, let me know.
William McCaslin is asking about the Parliament trying to make everybody stay at home and shut down.
Is that with you guys?
Yeah, here in Ontario.
I've heard there's some new shutdown stuff happening up How's that going?
It's, you know what? I think if it's legitimate science, if they're coming forward saying, okay, well, the number of infections is raising, it's a legitimate reason to shut it down, which I believe it is, then it certainly qualifies. And maybe they're overreaching or overreacting. We definitely had a new rule pop in just a couple days ago where they can pull you over for no reason, give you a $700 ticket or something like that, unless you know, certain criteria. You're working out, you're getting food, you're going to work. It's a very limited window. So yeah, I don't know. Is it overreach? Is it we're another few months, this is going to be behind us, really. So are they
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. I think that it's going to be very hard to make the case for a lot of these things when 75% of the country or even half is fully vaccinated. You know what I mean? Like what is going to be the argument? I mean, not that they necessarily need a coherent argument to do a lot of the stuff, they'll just do it anyway. And, you know, the fear is so great that we're seeing people still saying like, I'm still wearing a mask and spacing after getting vaccinated and everything. It just doesn't, they're not pro-science. It's a cult at this point.
It certainly can be, excuse me, perceived that way, I think, because there's people that are legitimate when they come forward, make their recommendations, and then there's probably some people too that just they want the attention. It's through a YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's virtue signaling in the same way that you would do anything else. Like say, oh, I'm so great because of this. I donate to charity. I'm so nice because of all these things I'm doing for everyone else. I'm so responsible. Look at me. You know, like some people do it with their environmental activism. Some people do it with religious stuff. Some people do it with, you know, whatever. And
conversely, the fear though too. You know, I'm sure there's other prepper channels that are like, you know, 90% to death and da 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 da. So when there'd be this weird transcendence from what there was a legitimate reason to be concerned about the virus when it first came out. We didn't know it was coming on, if you believe the virus was real. To and most people are vaccinated, and all these people are losing their attention. So there's going to be this weird window.
Interesting.
You guys need to get your stuff together.
Trying to squeeze out every drop out of the remaining fear. That's interesting. Yeah, that's certainly the case. I think they'll pivot to either, if it is one of those channels that are totally focused on, you know, clicks for fear mongering, it's easy enough to pivot now away from the virus towards either the economic stuff, which is, you know, a valid concern in general, but for fear mongering, you can easily do it there too, or towards the vaccine passport government crackdown type fears as well. So there's a lot of things you can piggyback off of, springboard, piggyback, either one, onto, you know, if you're really trying to keep the fear train going. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be concerned about it, you know, certain things like that, but we're talking about the people who just are constantly fear mongering. There's plenty of material there still left for them with the pandemic related stuff, I think, even if it's not directly related to the virus itself. And then you could say like, oh, the Brazilian double secret strain and all this stuff that you see, you know, that people keep talking about. So who knows? There's going to be material there for them to keep fear mongering if that's their game.
Yeah, they're certainly going to squeeze. You described it quite well. They're going to squeeze every drop out of that stone. Just a side note here, Kevin R says, anyone out there get in on Dodge before the explosion? I didn't. I could have.
You know what's funny is that I had been looking at it because there was one thing. The one thing that made me very not uncomfortable, reluctant to get involved with Dogecoin. Like obviously I know this is a meme coin that's mostly been pumped up just because of interest, but that doesn't mean you can't make money off a pump. But the reason I kind of declined to get into it was because if I'm not mistaken, there's like 15,000 of them are come into existence every day. Like I purposely designed it in a way to keep the supply ever increasing to keep the value low because he invented it to be like a meme coin. It was never supposed to be a legitimate currency of any kind. So it's inevitable that as soon as the any sort of new money flooding in starts to wane, even if people hold, the supply is going to continue to increase. But you know, that's the reason I didn't get in when it was like, I don't know what, it had gotten up to 5 cents or 6 cents, and I was like, I was thinking about it, and like, shit, now it's what is it, $1 or something? So, or 60 cents or whatever. So who knows?
Yeah, what is it now? It's
for Doge
right now.
Okay.
I did personally because it's it's all based on bullshit, and it
Right.
is scary to think that you certainly could make money, and if you did, great, for the people out there, but there's no utility. There's nothing behind it.
No.
It's just
Right.
if you believe, well, not Eric, but I mean, like the people out there, if you believe it has value, and I believe it has value, then it has value, and it goes to show you where the mindset of most investors are, or at least some of them, because a big part of that explosion was a result of a tweet from
Musk.
a guy that's trying to build tunnels underground and fly people around in spaceships. I mean, if I
Yeah.
gave you $1 billion every year, I'm sure you'd be like, hey, let's make flamethrowers this year.
Oh yeah. I was just thinking about the other day about the weird stuff that I would do if I had like billions of dollars, and not just like the frivolous stuff, but just it's always baffling to me that there's these guys like, and Elon Musk is probably the exception to this, but because he's like, fuck it, we'll go to Mars, and I'm like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? But there's guys like Elon Musk or Bill Gates, and I'm like, you have just like $100 billion, tens of billions of dollars, and you're gonna be like sitting there in like a board meeting. You're gonna like wake up to an alarm clock. You're gonna like run your business. Like think of all the insane things you could be like, you know what? We're just gonna put $10 billion into whatever this random problem is, and just, you know what I mean? You could just make an entire city experiment, run it the way you want with whatever laws or whatever. And just, you can do fund all sorts of studies to answer random questions that the academia doesn't want to mess with. You know what I mean? You could just do all sorts of stuff like that. And that's why Elon Musk is kind of the exception, because he is doing some stuff like that with SpaceX and whatnot. But they just do lame, boring stuff, and they still just go to work, like, do normal jobs like normal people. And it's just like lame.
I don't want to look at if he's finding a way to motivate people, great, but he didn't
Right.
invent, tunnels underground. He didn't invent.
No.
He's just a guy that's got a lot of money and says, hey, well, let's try and do this.
Right.
Good for him. And I don't want to poo-poo on Elon, but he's not a. I find it entertaining from my perspective that somebody could tweet something so meaningless like doggy coin to the moon or whatever.
Dogecoin.
And people just jump on it like he's some kind of goddamn messiah. It's amazing.
Well, there's a double effect there, because there's those people, but then there's also the people who just say, holy shit, Elon Musk tweeted this, all the crazy people are going to jump on it, so I'm going to jump on it too, just because of that. Not that I personally care what he says, but just knowing that him saying it is going to make it go up, so now I want to get in too. So there's like third level people who are like, oh man, and then these people are going to get it because they think that, so I'm going to do it.
Mark, yes, and absolutely correct. And like I said initially, there's certainly some opportunity to make money, but for me personally, I'm doing pretty good with crypto so far. But Doge, it's too risky right now for me personally. Not financial advice. Do what you want with your money, and that's the long and the short of it. Mark Olson, real quick, thank you. Your latest set of videos are great. Thank you. I'm working on one earlier today. It should be out tomorrow on the Patreon channel, which is continuing that advanced prepper concepts theory. So if you enjoyed that, just wait. It's just getting started, my friend. There's some really cool stuff coming up. Alex McEwen, it's an overreach. That's why he retraced. We forgot about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Okay, so which is you guys have amendments there, First Amendment, Second Amendment. We have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which I don't know what specifically it was about the charter that he retracted. So maybe you can get into that a little bit more, Alex. But I forget exactly what he said, our prime minister. I don't pay too much attention to it. I'll be honest, well, I can't say this publicly, but if you were in a particular business, we'll just say, I don't know, like Uber or Uber Eats or something like that, you could certainly produce some documents to say that you have papers that you're in this industry to call an 800 number. If anybody pulls you over and questions what you're doing, you can essentially, there's ways around the system so that it doesn't matter if you're in the public doing whatever you want to do. You can evade. You could, if one was inclined.
Interesting. Yeah, there's always loopholes that you can find usually. It just depends on how much effort and cost there is involved in exploiting them.
Yes.
because they usually leave certain loopholes for themselves. You know what I mean? They don't want to shut out the complete.
I hope that Brian, thank you very much. I hope you will consider
Awesome,
an episode on home defense and safety. Jackson, MS, my hometown, had 6 murders in 24 hours. That's scary.
Wow, it definitely is.
You want to do that next week, Eric? Maybe we'll talk about our
Sure
security protocols that we would instill.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to talk about that, or at least
good idea. Yeah, Brian, we'll cover that.
Good evening, South Florida DCL. Destiny, familiar names. It's nice to see Donna. And is Dizzle, Jay Dizzle?
Jade, where is that at? Missed that one. Good evening. Yeah, good evening, good evening, good evening.
Madness.
Someone, Marshall says, why a revolver semi is better? Well, like I said, it depends on what you mean by better. There's certain people, especially if you're not a very avid shooter, there's different features that may or may not be a good thing. If you're not extremely practiced with a semi-automatic, like something like limp wristing it, which can cause a jam, you know, the way you hold the gun when you shoot it, how easy it is to pull the trigger on like something like a Glock that has no external safety. That could be a safety issue there if you're not extremely comfortable with it, clearing jams, that sort of thing. So there's just a simplicity to revolvers that can be beneficial in certain situations. And yes, they have a lot lower capacity, but the amount of times where that comes into play is usually not that often in a home invasion situation. Certainly possible, but if you're not comfortable with a gun, I think a jam or something like that would be more catastrophic more often than the amount of times that you would need more than 6 or 8 shots. You can get like a M&P R8 Smith & Wesson revolver, it's 357 that holds 8 rounds, I think, right? So it's pretty solid. You can always have just more than one gun too if you didn't want to worry about the capacity of an individual magazine.
You certainly would want a variety of a lot of different things, in my estimation, because they do so many different things. Shotguns, right?
True. Yeah.
Thunderchild survives. New name. Thanks. Welcome to the show. Question: is it easier to be a prepper in Canada or the USA? That's a great question. You guys, well, I'll give you kudos.
That's an interesting question.
You certainly have a lot more freedom firearms wise. But what do you think, Eric? What other aspects?
I think, yeah, that's true. In terms of gear and stuff, I think the U.S. probably wins out because of cost and like the things like firearms and even exploding targets and all this other stuff that we can get that's probably more controlled in Canada. But like we were just talking about either last week or the week before, if your goal is to run off into the woods, bushcraft style, then I think Canada is a way better option than as long as you can handle the cold weather. There's a lot more ability to do that in Canada to legitimately run out and live off the land totally apart from humans than there is anywhere in the U.S. other than maybe Alaska.
Yeah, well, ultimately, turn it back and give Americans some kudos as well. I don't know what the term is, but you guys have, like, I see this all the time. Back in the day, I'd be on blogs and you see these ads for food. You get a 3 months worth of food, 6 months. These MREs, Mountain House, or whatever it is. And in America, it's all free shipping.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like our ability just to get the stuff is probably greater or cheaper.
Yes, certainly a perk, but I think.
But the fact that we have 330-ish million people in an area smaller than you guys have 60 million, that could certainly come into play too.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be largely dependent on the nature of the disaster, because exactly. I know if there was a certain, let's just coronavirus 2.0, and 1 out of 3 people are dying, there's havoc. Guess what? A lot of Americans are probably going to make their way to Canada. Let's face it.
That's true.
If it's an EMP, then logistically that may not be possible. It's just not because of lack of fuel.
Traveling, yeah.
Getting to Canada could be a lot more difficult. So the nature of disaster plays in, but in terms of long-term survivability, no offense, I'm being biased, but Eric hit it on the head. I mean, if you know how to hunt and go in the woods and survive in the winter, nobody's going to find you up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, much more difficult. Yeah, you're much less likely to run across other people doing the same thing.
Yeah, or conversely, in a rural area such as the deserts, if you had the, if you were, if you knew how to survive in a very hostile environment, such as anywhere in the States, such as a desert, people aren't going to go where there's no resources. They're going to go the other direction. So I think you could do pretty good in some rural hostile areas, provided you had the knowledge and skill to survive in such
for
areas.
sure. Officer Rollout says Elon Musk equals Ulsa Doom and the Snake Cult. Oh, it's Thulsa Doom. If you're referencing Conan, Thulsa Doom and his Mountain of Power. 2 snakes over a setting sun. I don't think he is quite a Thulsa Doom level hypnotist, causing women to jump to their deaths when he beckons. Yeah, come to me, my child. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it, the original Conan. So yeah, I do think he is. Like I said, I'd rather see someone be eccentric and crazy with their billions than just go to work and sit in a board meeting. Let's shake it up, Let's see what do. I'd rather someone make a $2 billion stone monument to themselves than just, take over the postal service like what's his name, Bezos. That stuff's boring.
I was talking with Christy about this the other day. His growth. Now I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but you're with $10 billion or whatever Elon's worth. Have you seen his?
It's like 100 billion, yeah.
100 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
He wipes his ass with money. He's got a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, have you seen his girlfriend?
Yeah.
Like there's an age difference, so good for him. They got a younger girl. Oh, but she's. I don't know if the audience has, but I mean, if you're worth so much money, you'd think your girlfriend would be good looking.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Permanent goth thing happening, and it's not full Halloween. It's like she's halfway Halloween.
Yeah, I was not impressed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm certainly not impressed.
Donna Hoffman says she heard that Bizarizza Jizza BRG was in the hospital with a ruptured appendix, recuperating at home now. Wow. So get well soon, man. Sorry you had to go through that. Hopefully you can take care of it. I've heard that's pretty painful. I've never had to go through an appendicitis myself, but I know that when they rupture, that can be pretty serious. So best of luck to you. Good thing to get that taken care of now for anything. Well, for any sort of shit the fan scenario. So that's, like I said, get better.
I will have to make a point of reaching out to him next week if he's on here to see how he's doing. He's a good guy. I've spoken, above and beyond YouTube. He's certainly a good person. Mary Ann Atkinson, do you ever watch Edwin Sarkeesian shoot crazy stuff?
I know that's a YouTube channel, but that's all I know. I don't know what that is in reference to.
I don't watch much YouTube.
I do, but I don't watch a lot of the gun channels, specifically like gun-only channels. There's so many of them. Was he shooting exploding targets or something like that? You'll have to give us more details. So I know of him, but that's about it. I really don't know anything about what he's up to. Someone mentioned too that in Canada you guys can't even get protective gear. I do know that I think in Canada you have to have a license even to get like body armor or something, or maybe to import it. I don't know how it is to own it, but
I don't know what level or to which degree. You can certainly get bulletproof vests and things of this accord, but I suspect I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole to know what the legal gray area with certain types of body armor. I wasn't familiar with any, to be honest with you. And even when it comes to personal protection, there are exemptions for, you can file for one if you're a celebrity, if you're security detail, or if you've got a lot of money. So there's certainly a bias in terms of who can have a firearm and who can't. And it's funny to me because when you look at it, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, I'm just speaking the truth. It's called prepper logic for a reason. There are a lot of politicians that are anti-firearm, but yet when you see them walking around in public, they're surrounded by a bunch of people.
All have guns. Yeah.
So
and that's the same in here. I mean, it's obviously we're allowed to have guns still, but all the politicians who are speaking out against it, they still have their security details. They still carry guns in places like New York City and Washington D.C. where they won't let anyone else.
It's such an obvious. It's like for them not to make that connection. You should have guns because of reasons X, Y, Z. You know, why do you, not you, Eric, specifically,
Right.
but like people in general, why do you have guns? Some people have it for a legitimate reason of, guess what? Security. Because guess
Right.
what? There are people that are crazy in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not fair that some parts of the population are allowed to have firearms. Politicians had to have their security detail, and why not you?
Right.
It's a simple equation to me. And yeah, Brian says, I got to read everything that Brian says moving forward.
Yep.
He says anything. We just got to stop.
Yep. We're going to read it.
Really
He says he envies Canadian healthcare. He heard it's free, single payer, which is basically the case, right? I mean,
Yep.
Obviously you're paying pretty high taxes, but yeah, the healthcare system is considered quote unquote free, single payer. You don't pay taxes based on what services you use.
That's right. It's all free. There's certain things, visual, dental, you have to pay for, but most people have benefits. It's taken care of. It's certainly something that I think we take for granted here in Canada. I don't blink. I feel sick, I go to the doctor. I don't.
Right.
If you need surgery, it doesn't matter what it is. It's all taken care of. So in terms of relating that to preparedness, I mean, I'm connected with certain people that have medical background in case something were to go awry, I will say. But we'll go back to Brian's point. I mean, how is that today in the States? I'm assuming you've got insurance, Eric, and does something.
I'm kind of lucky because I don't technically have insurance. I have VA health benefits, for my time in the military, which is pretty close to what you have but it's just not for everyone, obviously. Like, I don't pay a monthly amount. They don't cover literally anything. Like I said, they don't cover vision, dental, and anything elective and things like that. But in general, like, I don't have health insurance. I just have the VA benefits. And if I got, if I break my leg, I go to the VA. If I got appendicitis or whatever, it's VA. So I'm not paying monthly. But for most people, they have to quite a bit.
And that's sad. It's sad to think that people's personal health is degrading, or their quality of life isn't as good as it could be because of the system that they.
Yeah, the system we have now, because I'm not a fan of single payer in general. If I had to build my own system, the way it's done in Canada or in a lot of the countries is not the way I would do it. But we really, in the US, we just have a shockingly bad, it's really the worst of all possible worlds. You know what I mean? Like, it would be hard to make it worse. Literally, if it got any worse, it would just be so bad that people would revolt and thus it would actually become better. So it's just it's about as bad as it can get. Like, there's just nothing about it that makes any sense. It's really, really, really bad.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking with my buddy about this earlier about socialism, and yes, Mark, I am wearing that shirt. Thank you for noticing that. The Che Guevara shirt. They hear that from Canada and they think, oh, well, your healthcare is socialist, so you're a socialist country. And that's clearly not the case, but it's a misconception people have. But what's your take on that? I mean,
on which part?
On healthcare, the way that we have it. I mean, are you content with Americans the way that things are there?
No, like I said, I think our system here in the U.S. is just shockingly bad, and I think even a Canadian style system would be an improvement for most people. I just don't morally agree with that sort of government system in general. You know what I mean? Where you just
overall, for sure, but if you take this one component,
yeah. So the way I would do healthcare is if you look into, I just am in general favor free market type systems. If you look at stuff that's outside, it's kind of medical, but outside the normal medical system in the U.S., like veterinary care or even cosmetic surgery, a lot of that stuff works really well. You don't have to, the same type of surgeries that take the same amount of doctors, same amount of medicines are way cheaper for breast augmentation or plastic surgery, just because it's elective and it's outside the system. And if you can just set things up that way, then I think it would be a lot better. It was free market system. But obviously you're giving something up too. Then you wouldn't have a safety net of what if you can't afford it, even with good prices. That's going to happen sometimes too. So I don't know what the best solution is, but probably something where a catastrophic type insurance maybe is paid for by the government, even though I don't like that in general. but you know, it can't be abused. Like you can't just go to the emergency room and be like, "Oh," but if you have to, you know, I've got a headache, you know, and because some people use the emergency room like their own personal doctor. And that's part of the reason why the current system is so bad, is because if you're like on the really low end, like a hobo, you basically have free healthcare. You know what I mean? You can just go to the emergency room whenever you want, and you're going to get treated. They're actually not allowed to not treat you, so you don't have to worry about it. But then if you're just a couple rungs up, those are the people who really get reamed by the current system, because they can't, they'll end up with a bill, they'll ruin their finances. Their health insurance is extremely expensive, so they try not to use a doctor. Like they just getting, the middle class is the one who's getting totally reamed by the current system. So it's really just like I said, it's shockingly bad. So I do think, like, I think from in the current sense, for most people's day-to-day lives, to not have to worry about it, not be able to get just like buried in medical bills for some minor thing, I think the Canadian style system would be an improvement, but it isn't what I would choose to set up, you know, how I would choose to set up a system if I, you know, emperor powers.
Fair. Certainly, if I was thinking outside the box. I mean, if you really wanted to get treated as, you know, just go with no ID. Don't shave for a couple of days. Take a dump on the floor and stare at the elevator.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what would happen in the U.S. if you show up and you're like, you know, you have a mangled limb, it's spurting blood everywhere, and you just give them the wrong name or whatever. I think you would probably get away with it. You know what I mean? Because I was telling people, like, because there's all these incidents like where, like, the ambulance, like they'll charge you for the ambulance ride. Like if I chop up my arm and there's blood spurting out and I call the ambulance, like I'm gonna get a bill for that, even with my VA benefits. Like if I don't just go to the VA directly, I may have a $1,200, $2,000 bill that I'll get just for calling the ambulance, which is ridiculous. You have to think about that. Like, I think I can drive myself, you know, and you start going there with a severed limb or whatever. So I've told them, like, don't tell them my name if they show up and just be like, I can't remember. Oh, I don't remember my social security. My name is Paul Kersey. And yeah, and then what are they gonna do if you don't have an ID on you or something? Like, and you can stay with the lie. I'm not sure what happens. I've never been there. So,
well, let's bring this full circle to the prepper ideological concepts, and I'll just throw this out there. I got an old video, top 10 most valuable, the type of characteristics you would want in other preppers if you had your bug out team. And, you know, the engineer, mechanical engineering, people like that. You had people that are into like agriculture and all the regrow things, pioneer village sort of mindset. Got to tell you, top 2, folks, for me personally, top 2. If I could put the all-star team together, this is for me personally.
Okay.
They would certainly be people in the medical field and people in the security field, because when shit hits the fan, if shit hits the fan, as they say, and I'm off grid, or you know, Eric's got his spot in the desert, he's got some off grid, he's got food, he's got water, he's got everything. I don't care what's happening in the town next door. I don't care. But if something does happen, the 2 things are going to be very, very important: your personal security and your personal health, because I won't be able to go to the hospital necessarily, and people are going to want to know my business, but just why security has to get heightened.
Yeah.
So those people, in my opinion, should be treated like gold post SHTF.
Yeah.
Anybody in the security realm and healthcare, because their knowledge, their skill set is just going to be so valuable.
For sure. It seems like both of our shirts are inspiring some rage in the comment sections.
Hey, you got to stand up there.
They were saying some people are not a fan of Che Guevara, obviously, because he's a commie. And then mine, I have the atrocious, quote unquote, atrocious Hawaiian shirt on. Yeah. So we're both inspiring some rage.
It's a shirt. This does not mean I support or reject the ideologies of this man. It's obviously a famous photo, and I've no relation to him, and it is what it is, you know.
And I like to look tropical, you know. And I'm sorry that my blotchy sunburned face matches my red and white shirt, so it's not the best aesthetic there.
We, Eric, you and I are now apologizing to the audience. You know,
I don't count that as apology. I'm just saying, hey, this is what it is. Explanation, maybe.
Explanation. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Mark is saying we need a guest. He's saying that to somebody. I guess they're getting tired of us talking. We need a guest.
Right. Yeah. So they said we're both doing different versions of a gray man with our with our attire. You're the Antifa guy who's gonna say it. I'm just the casual.
Oh, I
Thanks,
guess
Brian. Brian likes our shirt though. Our number one fan likes our shirt, so that's take that, guys.
That's funny. That's true. I'm gonna be back in a second. Can you hold the fort?
Yeah, sure.
Cool, man.
We're still under English rule. I'm assuming you're talking about Canada. Yeah, you were talking about briefly that you were only allowed to have stab vests and not bulletproof vests. That's interesting. That sucks. How about memes? Man, I've been doing so bad with collecting the memes. I honestly don't have any right now. I know people have been emailing them to me, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then I forget to download them and put them in my meme folder. So we might have to do like a meme one episode that's just like half memes, just for everybody. But they'll be back. I'll have to see if maybe Shay has a few. Hi, CB. Welcome. Yeah, we're a gray man as a commie and just a tourist. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like Hawaiian shirts too, you know. The Hawaiian shirt is full on liberty. Eric is going for that dentist on vacation look. 100% harmless.
William McNabb, all the memes. Yeah, that's true. I'm not on Facebook anymore. So
sorry to interrupt you. He said, get Colorado Biker's dad as a guest. Yeah, he made an appearance in the last episode, just chilling in the background. I'm assuming it was his dad or somebody, maybe his brother.
Let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. You want to be on the show? We got 20 minutes left here.
Yeah, shoot me an email.
rulethewasteland@gmail.com.
That's it. Yeah. If you have your camera set up, ready to go, you're interested, you can hop on. I'll have to see if my buddy SBQR wants to jump on one of these days. Cool. Maybe maintain his I'm sure he's interested in maintaining his anonymity, but he can wear a COVID mask or something.
Even right now, there is an option. We can send you a link. There's an option to sign up with just auditory. You don't have to connect with a video.
That's true.
Email us right now. We'll put you on. This will be fun. Random guests.
Yeah.
Or even email me if you want to.
Just keep in mind too that however you sign on to your Zoom, make sure it's whatever name you want to show, because it'll be public. So if you put your full name on there, that's what's going to show up. So make sure your name is set to what you want it to be for everyone to see. Oh, Officer Rollout says, Eric, if you are still in the Vegas area, okay, the water situation for the coming season is no es bueno. It's not good. That's correct. But I have the last place I just moved. The last place I had 8 water barrels that were 50 gallons each stored. Now I've cut it down to 4 of them, but I also have a pool now, which is thousands and thousands of gallons of water. So wow. That's my plan.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool, man. I just see the super chat here from Marco Esquandolas. I think he must hate Che Guevara. $50 super chat to burn the Chase shirt live on the air.
Wow, I don't even. Oh, he's just saying it. He's offering it.
I would do it. Sure. Not tonight. I'll tell you what.
Right.
I'm certainly ready to do it next week.
Cool. Yeah. All right. We'll hold you to that, Marco. Better be here.
You're damn right.
Will riots go beyond the blue population centers? I don't know. It depends. I mean, for riots, you have to have rioters. So to that extent, like, is there going to be a Black Lives Matter riot in deep in the backwoods of Kentucky or something? Probably not. You know what I mean? But yeah, they could extend beyond the deep downtown areas into the normal metro areas and city areas for sure. Maybe we saw some instances of people starting to march into the suburbs and stuff. I don't necessarily think this current round will get worse than what we've seen last year, but it could get back to that level. I mean, we have what's going on in Minnesota now, and pretty soon they're going to have a resolution to the Derek Chauvin case, which was the death of George Floyd, that whole incident. Based on what I'm seeing now, it seems like he is probably going to get off, which is what I predicted from the beginning anyway. So that'll cause a lot of new consternation. So Mark Olson says, good storage, Eric. Yeah, I mean, I tried. That's a big issue out here is water. So the more you can have, the better. And I didn't, even with the pool, which is, way more storage than what I would have in the barrels. I didn't want to completely get rid of all the barrels because obviously the pool's open, it can get contaminated, and also it has a lot of chemicals in it. So if there were an incident right away, like the chlorine and stuff off gases, that's why you have to constantly treat your pool because it'll eventually, all right, putting his money where his mouth is. $50 super chat from Marco says, burn Shay 425 next week. All right. Much respect.
Wow.
Yeah. So now you got to do it.
Holy
How much do those shirts cost? We'll burn one every week. We'll buy them gross for $12.50, and we'll burn one every week for $50.
This was actually a gift, believe it or not, from a
Wow, is your mom gonna get mad now? You burned her shirt on it. All right.
But okay, I did call it.
Yeah.
Okay, next week. I'm gonna see you online though next week, Marco. You have
Yeah,
to
you better be there. But yeah, I respect the putting it down. But like I was saying, yeah, the pool you what's that?
Just the use direct burn chain.
Yeah, very definitive. I like it.
Holy shit! I'm gonna have a fire in my house here.
You have to smoke. You have to figure out how not to set off your alarms.
All these logistics.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
All right,
I like it.
We got to hear the backstory on that, Marco. Send an email to Eric.
Yeah.
rulethewasteland@gmail.com.
Speaking of which, yeah, and give us why particularly you want to see it. Obviously, we get eaten as a commie, so that alone is worthy of being his effigy being burned. I understand.
Fair,
but yeah.
Do it. I mean, you just gave $50. Like, what's the hard on here? What is thing against? I
like it.
Against this guy here.
That reminds me too, is that I made a wager with my friend that I have yet to come through on, where and I have 100% of going to do it. This hasn't worked out for me to be able to yet, but it was right after the election when everything was still like, there's a lot of shenanigans going on, and I bet him that Trump would be in office still after the inauguration. He said he wouldn't. So if I won and Trump did somehow maintain the presidency, then he was in London. He had to go and stand in front of Buckingham Palace with the MAGA hat on and scream, "Stop the steal." But if I lost, which I did, I have to go in the desert and shoot the MAGA hat while saying slogans from Biden, like "No malarkey," "Shut up, man." So I am still going to do that. So look forward to that video coming up soon. So the MAGA hat, I have to dust it. What's that?
Why do you do that? Make a video for that next week, and I'll make a video burning this shirt.
And then we can post. Yeah, we can play them live. We might not be able to burn. Well, we'll see what the bet was. If you can burn it live, that was the original.
Okay.
The original. So if we can't do it, I want to hold to that if possible. But we'll have to see what.
Okay. Well, let's ask Marco. Does it have to be live? Do I have to? Burn?
Just because you're indoor in like an apartment, right? So.
Yeah, it's
harder to. Yeah. But just let us know if it has to be live. We'll do our best to make it happen one way or the other. Whatever you want. Dejas is out. Later. Yeah.
Thank you. Very kind, very nice of you, Marco. I'm sorry you got some inhibitions with the shirt I'm wearing. $50 to go towards the cause. Yeah, I'm down, man. Thanks for contributing to the show. We really appreciate it. So, but if we can make that does it have to be live? I'll make a special video, man, just with the shirt and do all that. But if it doesn't have to be live, that would just logistically make things a lot better. We'll show it live, 425.
Right. But just so let us know, because we don't want to feel like you're stealing your $50.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, library list of good books. I have. I'll have to make a list specifically and bring it on, because off the top of my head, I could probably only list a few. But I do. I have a couple books of them on my channel. A couple videos about books. But like I mentioned before, the book "Surviving the Economic Collapse" is really good. I always think everyone should go back and read Mel Tappan books about survival. He's like the godfather of modern prepping and survivalism, pretty much. It's interesting to see the roots, and also, like I said, to get some perspective, to see this type of stuff that they're talking about being like imminent even in the 70s, where you're like, all right, these concerns have been around for a while. No need to panic most of the time. Just because it seems like we're on the verge of societal collapse always. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, that sort of thing. And some fiction, like they're saying, like that 1 Second After really is good. Lucifer's Hammer, I think, is an underrated classic kind of disaster book about a comet. And then reference books like TK 421 said Peeper's Medical Handbook is good. Like the Pocket Ref that I think Bug Out Dan referenced before. Just manuals that have information in them, a local atlas for your area and the surrounding states to show the roads, show the terrain features, and stored in a way that's not online, all that sort of stuff. 1 second later, yeah.
certainly a lot of good knowledge out there. 1 second after is a good one. And I'm more transcending to books that are dealing with the psychological aspect of things. And that's just, it's just a personal thing, because I think the way people are going to react psychologically is an underrated area of preparedness. There's just,
oh yeah, I think training your mind for those things is super important. And like you referenced, having the experience of going through the pandemic and like how we react to that and being like, wow, this is interesting to see where your mind goes in these real world situations.
yeah. And one thing that stands out even with 1 second after is how quickly, and I hate that I get nothing against, like, I'm not going after woman. I'm not calling any woman that are watching this anything. But in this particular book, it was sort of showcased at how quickly some woman, or at least a woman, resulted to using her, wanting to give her body in exchange for survival, where, you know, traditionally it wouldn't happen under normal means. So
right.
it's there's a lot of things to be learned, I think, and I'm trying to absorb as much information as, well, not as much information. I'm reading a lot of different things right now, but the psychological aspects certainly, I'm attracted to that more than anything right now. There's, you know, there's lots of great books out there.
I totally agree. And that's honestly why one reason I do those exercises on my channel, where I will watch these goofy movies, but go through them like with an eye to like, okay, how would I react in this situation? What would I do? And it's fun, you know, that is also fun. And that's probably the main reason I do it, but it is a good mental exercise to say like, okay, if things that you haven't thought about before, or what would I do in this situation, that sort of thing, and go through the whole movie. And we have someone else said, how much to burn that Hawaiian shirt? Man, so much rage.
You gotta get 50
angers, yeah, right. Angers people, just the sight of it.
Yeah. You're gonna wear it every week.
Yeah, I've got a whole collection of them. Yeah, Colorado Biker Prepper referenced Edward Bernays, who's basically the father of modern propaganda. He would be considered a marketer, I guess, in a generous term, but it was crazy the stuff that he came up with, basically, like the whole idea of like bacon and eggs being a breakfast food. He just like created that for marketing for, I think it was for the pork industry. He just came up with that and like pimped it out, and it totally took over. Brian, once again, thank you for your support. We are definitely going to cover the topic that you want. I really appreciate it. He says, good night. Love and respect you guys. And it's always enjoyable to spend Sunday night tuning in your program. Awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to buy more merchandise soon. Be safe, Brian. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. Take care.
Very, very cool, Brian. Thank you very much. That's generous of you. Second time. That's super cool.
So Kevin says, I would sell my body for Mountain House, but not Wise Foods. You have a menu of like, all you get for the Wise Foods is a clothes-on massage. You don't get it. No happy ending. But now Mountain House. As preppers, we need to realize that things can go south very fast. Absolutely. And that's part of what like you were talking about, the last minute, like we got on, even as late as we felt like we were being with the pandemic stuff, we were way ahead of everyone. So those resources are still there. So it felt like almost like cheating. Like when we realized what could happen in this situation, and then you go into the store and there's still alcohol sitting on the shelf, it feels like, how can I not get this? You know what I mean? Like if you have a vision for how this could go, and you have a couple of 88-cent bottles of isopropyl sitting there, how can you not fill your cart with them? You know what I mean?
South Florida, DCL, upgrades to bug out bags, upgrades on bug out bags. You know, for somebody
to get Dan on, yeah,
I've known Dan for years. It's a constant refining process. For me personally, the latest thing that I suppose I've been looking at in terms of bug out bags, now I try and get out once a week, is accessibility. So you got all this stuff in a bag, you know, different compartments and whatnot. It's having things stored in specific places based on the projected usage. If you're going to use something like courage a little bit more often than any other item, then it should be in a specific spot that's probably a little bit more at the top of the bag, a little bit more accessible, and then categorizing things that, you know, so that'll be the shelter section, this would be the fire starting section, things like that.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed when just camping too, is that you end up if you just throw everything in a bag, you end up digging through it all the time to get one. You end up, like you said, you find yourself going for the same things all the time. And those should be on the exterior, or the things that you might need urgently, obviously, would be on the exterior. So something like your clean pair of underwear, even though you're going to probably need to get it the clothes every day, you're not going to be changing your underwear unless you're in a pretty secure place with a decent amount of time, that sort of thing. You're not, so that can be in the bottom of your bag. Whereas something like first aid equipment or your multi-tools and any sort of self-defense stuff, that needs to be really accessible, you know, or even like a poncho, you know, you don't want to have to take everything out of your bag to get your rain equipment if it started raining. But you're not going to be changing your socks or your underwear unless you're in a pretty relaxed situation. So that can be deeper in the bag, stuff like that.
Exactly. I'll give you one, South Florida DCL. This is a personal one that I came up with, which is the accessibility to a fire starting, something I created. And here in Canada, it gets cold. Hypothermia is a very serious thing. You fall in water, you need to be able to start fire quickly, and you're not going to have any dexterity. So the system I've created, I'll get into that another time, but the logistics of why you won't have any dexterity. So one thing I've got on my bug-up bag is I've got a tampon, and I've injected it with kerosene.
Nice.
And it's a bit of an upgrade, actually, because I usually have duct tape on it, but the upgrade was it's actually I've got reflective material, and it's on the exterior of the bag, so I don't have to dig for anything. And it's affixed in such a way that I can grab it with one hand and tear it off, get into it with a knife, cut it open, put a spark to it, and I've got a very easy, practical, quick way to start fire. Because if you need to start fire in an emergency situation, it has to be accessible, it has to be quick, and it has to be easy. So that works for me. It's like a little on the top of the bag. It's just this, you know, if you needed to start fire quickly, it's lightweight, it's portable, waterproof. You know,
it makes me think of that short story by, I think it was Jack London, who did Call of the Wild and everything. It was called To Start a Fire, and it's about this. It's a short story of a couple pages maybe, and he's in I think it's the Canadian wilderness or somewhere, and he I think he falls in the water. He gets otherwise like in imminent danger of hypothermia, and he goes to start a fire. And like you said, his hands are like wooden basically, and he finally he has to basically has to hold his hand in the fire to start it. And you can hear it, like smell it burning his hand, but he can't care because he's like about to die, so he has to do it anyway and all this stuff. And then he basically finally gets the fire going, and he's like okay, I finally got this going, emergency. And then like snow falls off the tree and like snuffs it out. It's like a brutal like short story.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you guys one more story. I think we're going to wrap up here in a second. This was a fascinating story to me, and he was up here from Britain. Nobody was way up north at this festival, it's the Temagami Canoe Festival. So the government of Canada had a bunch of money to throw around to try and bring out different types of celebrities and companies to this up north. So for whatever reason, they got Ray Mears, which I don't know if some of the audience member will know who exactly I'm talking about. And I was able to meet him. I met him twice, actually. Very cool guy.
Yeah, I've heard the name Ray Mears. It's like touted as a survival expert, been around.
Renowned survival expert, renowned. And I was like this close to him because I knew what a legend this man was.
Right.
There was like 12 people there, and he's teaching this session about fire. It was fascinating. I got a lot of photos, actually.
That's cool.
It was cool, but here's the cool story. I love this story. Ray was talking about his whole philosophy was about as a species in survival, we need to look at what's happened historically and learn from where other people failed. And the story he gave was profound, or at least it was profound to me. He was talking about how these people, there have been so many instances where people get lost in the woods. They're hypothermic. They have no dexterity because your peripherals go first.
Yeah, you get stiff and you can't move. Yeah.
It focuses, everything goes here. Your brain, everything shuts down. Says, okay, we need to keep, this section away. People, some of these people make it to a cabin and they found people dead hunched over with a pile of broken matches in front of them.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to light up. Probably told the story to a lot of people before, but see if I can have an example here. Well, this is perhaps a little exaggerated. So this is actually a UV glow stick. It's rechargeable. I'm not giving them a plug. I don't work for them, but it's a cool thing to have. It's like it glows in the dark and it recharges through the sun. But we're just going to pretend this is a match for a second. Because their fingers were so frozen, they weren't able to strike the match correctly. And the way that you do it is, or at least the way that Ray Mears taught me, was that this is the match head. You put your finger right at the tip.
Right. That way you don't break it.
You strike it that way. So it's that simple thing that it's a shame too, because somebody got lost, somebody found a cabin, they were in there, they could have survived.
Like they almost won, yeah.
But they couldn't ignite the match. They were doing it incorrectly and they kept snapping it because their fingers were too cold. So a valuable lesson. I thought that it's just one little simple thing that literally made the difference between life and death.
For me, for the fire starting, the one thing, and this is more for people who aren't really well versed, and because that could happen to someone who's even a pretty accomplished outdoorsman if they're not used to being in a situation where they can't use their hands. But for people who aren't as well versed, the one mistake that I always see them make is like time and time again, if someone's like, I couldn't get a fire started, I know exactly what they're doing wrong. And it's they start with sticks that are way, way too big for the size of a flame that comes off a match. And so the rule, or actually the easy way to remember it that I tell everyone is that matches are designed to light match sticks, period. So you can't, it's very difficult unless it's like bone dry to start something the size of a pencil or pen or thicker with a match flame, let alone the size of your finger or something, or a log. Like I've seen people get the logs from the gas stations, like it's a split log and it has to be dry.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a learning process for a lot of people. And I think it's, for me personally, it's 90% preparation to build to the point where you're putting a spark to it. But for a lot of people that are inexperienced, they, we all learn, we all go through these processes. And the important thing is to continue getting out there to learn. And even the audience watching this, I don't know what your plans are next week or in the next month, for example. It's lovely to see people come back every week. But
absolutely,
I hope you're getting out there into the wilderness. I hope you're playing with the gear that you have, finding its limitations. I mean, we could all be looking through our first aid.
Absolutely, getting expired stuff, finding missing stuff,
figuring out how different things work. I got a first aid kit. I've got a lot of different crap with there. I don't know what it does, but I guarantee there's people out there in YouTube, not our audience necessarily. We'll just say preppers that watch YouTube videos. You got, how are you for first aid? First aid. Well, I got this big backpack, first aid kit.
Right.
Have you opened it? Do you know what's in there? Do
you know where it is? So you're not just like,
what things to do for what situation. There's so much to learn. So it's cool that we can jive. I can jive with Eric here every week. Well, guess we'll learn some stuff. But it's important for the audience to get out there and get your hands dirty.
Exactly.
Really,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys, for watching up to this point. This flew by tonight. Wow. Definitely check out Shay's Patreon for the advanced prepper tactics. I forget what you call it. Is that what it is? Advanced prepper concept.
Cool. You may have to wait a bit. I've got the next one's coming out. It's going to be a while. It's called Wake Up.
Nice.
And I'll leave you with this. I'm going to shut up, and then you can sign us off, Eric.
Sounds good.
It's access control related, and let's just say it's usually if you're bugged out or whatever it is and you're sleeping, usually rely on auditory or visual means of waking up for if somebody's entered our perimeter.
Yeah.
So I completely skip all that and I introduce something that's never been done before. It's very quick and very effective, and you're awake in 3 seconds. It's very quiet.
Okay.
So it's called.
I'm curious now. I'll have to get on there.
I think it's genius. And Destiny says Dark Prepper. Yeah, I've got that's all I'm doing. Dark Prepper Mindset, Advanced Prepper Concepts. But you guys are you're gonna wait 3 months because the Patreon people rock, and that's where we had a vote, Democratic. Some people said, forget, forget YouTube, just put it all here. But
Cool.
majority rules, and there's a 3-month wait. So that's
cool.
good.
Well, check it out, Advanced Prepper Concepts.
Sorry.
I said check it out, Advanced Prepper Concepts on Patreon, and of course, rulethewasteland.com and Prepper Logic on YouTube, where Shay's at. And awesome. Yeah, we should have a guest next week. We have a few lined up. We should be able to update the preppertrifecta.com on there fairly soon when we find out exactly who we're going to get. We got a couple in the wings. But I appreciate everyone watching. As always appreciate the super chats and support. And we will, who was it that got Marco, email us if we can do a video and play it live, or if you really want it to be live, because that'll be a little more logistically difficult to do it indoors. But we don't, like I said, we don't feel like you're taking your money one way or the other. So let us know. Appreciate what's that?
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. So yeah, exactly. That's what we'll say if we give it next time. But also, awesome guys.